Okay, so here we have pre-reading number 1 for Tiberius on Capri, an island, right? Here we have the Latin text from Suetonius Tiberius, chapters 40 to 44. This first assignment is just 40 to 41, so in other words, the first 20 lines. Okay, just to give you a brief idea of what the piece is saying. Tiberius is especially noted for abandoning the city of Rome and letting the government kind of fall into disarray. He wasn't very interested in being emperor. In some respects, he enjoyed the power, but in other respects, he didn't like people. He didn't want to sit and listen to court cases as his adoptive father, Augustus, had done. We heard about Augustus's work habits, and now it's almost as a foil. We hear in this particular piece about Tiberius on Capri. It's going to give his departure to Capri and his absence from the city of Rome is going to give rise to a great number of rumors. And Suetonius will subsequently, not in this particular reading, but subsequently, talk about some of the rumors there were about how just weird Tiberius became, isolated as he was on the island of Capri. The island of Capri is not far from the mainland, but as he goes on to describe it, it has basically only one entrance, and so it's easy to defend. I mean, it's not like people can sneak and see him. So it's a little bit of a fortress getaway, and he's perfectly happy with that. Now, as we turn to the Latin text, there's a few ablative absolutes we need to be aware of, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward. The notes are quite helpful here. We have a number of technical terms and the names of places, and that we get into right off the bat. Okay? Now, here's this first long sentence right here. All right? We have it going down to here. Now, when we see capital letters, all right, like here, Campania, I'm going to use the highlighter instead. We have Campania, Capua, Noli, and then we finally have Capri. Okay, we also have the town of Fideni here, all right? But the notes, simply tell you these are locatives. In the first sentence, we have them doing double duty. I mean, the verb does double duty. So I think you can see this ablative absolute there. But then let's look at this cum. Well, what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for a subjunctive. Okay, so here really is my main sentence down here, right? Okay. Well, it's not the main sentence. It's this subjunctive clause. Okay. Now, in between, we have wedged a dependent clause, and you do have to massage that a little bit into English, especially when you just take this relative quam causam with the genitive profectionis. Okay? We have the pluperfect a number of times, so you'll want to make sure that you catch that. All right, so really my main sentence is this, right? This is the main sentence, all right? And this is the main thought that the author, Suetonius, wants to get across to us, that he bore himself or took himself to Capri. Now, the clause that follows here, starting with praecipui and all the way down to Mari, this is all describing the island of Capua, or Capri, I'm sorry, the island of Capri. This is all describing it, right? the word septa was also used for voting booths. Okay, for example, on the field of Mars, Julius Caesar built something called the Septa Iulia. It was a voting hall. And the idea is that you have these narrow, enclosed, confined spaces. So here, what kind of insula is it? It is septa. And I would translate that enclosed or encircled or something like that. Okay? Now, this whole clause goes together like this, but with these two ablatives and then the genitive in between. We've seen that 100 times in both Greek and Latin. All right? But then all of a sudden there's a disaster. Okay? And it's a disaster in which supra vaginti hominum perierat. Okay? And under what circumstances did this happen? Okay? With, oops, I shouldn't say that. It should go right here, melia. Okay? Super vaginti hominum melia perierat. Okay? And they were gladatorio munere, and it was a ruina, and I would take that as an ablative. Okay? In the ruin. And you're wondering, well, how does this happen? Well, you have to understand in these days, these are days before the Colosseum is built. That's not going to be built for another half century. A lot of times, gladiator shows were held in an open space, and the seating would be what we would call temporary seating. It's kind of like erecting bleachers. Okay, so don't think of a big stone amphitheater that collapsed, but rather think of, makeshift bleachers that came tumbling down. But at any rate, now we have a disaster. The emperor's on Capri, and what's he going to do? Well, Suetonius tells us that he transiit, okay? That he transiit. Where did he transiit? In continentum. All right? Now, why did he do it? And he made, this is kind of a legal term. It says he made power. Well, this is in the sense of sitting down and administering funds or justice. He rushed to the scene of the disaster is what he did. Okay? And here Suetonius tells us all the more by so much more. So it's really an ablative of comparison, but by that much more, by so much more, in other words, he was very eager to rush to this disaster and show himself to be a caring emperor. And, for what reason did he want to do this more? Tanto, take this next clause now, this quod, because, okay, and here's the actual reason, right? Right there. And here, okay. Because he edidixerat, note the pluperfect, and submoverat. These are the two reasons why he rushed back and tried to save face and make himself look good. He had given orders when he went to Capri that he didn't want to be disturbed. That's kind of what this section just says in a nutshell, but take a look at the Latin and figure out how it goes together. Okay? Know what these are. Gradiens, ediuntis. Okay? And be very wooden about this. Okay? Translate it in a very wooden way so that you understand how the Latin fits together. Like I said, the thing is not to get the translation. It's been translated a whole bunch of times, but rather to understand how they got to that translation. Okay? Now, our next section is chapter 41. It's a short chapter, it ends right here with discrimina. All right? Now, regressus. Now, this is an abbreviation, rei publicae, so it's in the genitive case. You can simply translate that republic. Okay? So it is the curam rei publicae, the care of the state. Okay? Now, what am I expecting, people? So big, so great, ad eo, to such an extent, ut non. Okay, is it purpose or result? Well, regardless, let's start finding our subjunctives. There's one. Okay, and here's another one. Okay, this is all part of the same result clause. Okay. Yeah, and here's actually the main verb. Okay, so these four things, right? This is evidence in the mind of Suetonius of things completely falling apart in the government because Tiberius has decided to take himself away from Rome and just live on the island of Capri, an emperor in name only. But here, adeo ut non, it's a negative, okay? And here's one thing he did. Here's two, okay? That was a result of this. Here's three, that was a result of this. And here's four, that was a result of this, okay? Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward if you just get that basic structure down, okay? This one final thing, you'll notice these ablative here in the last sentence and the genitive imperii. So I would translate that to the empire. Okay, to the empire. That's kind of the way we say it in English. All right, so the big thing in this chapter 41, it's basically one sentence, is that you understand the structure. Here is what introduces it. All right, this is just an introductory comment, so regressus, right, referring then to Tiberius. What kind of Tiberius is he? He is a regressus in insulum Tiberius. All right, but then if you get those four things down and you find that with those subjunctives, then it all falls into place quite easily. So that's pre-reading for chapter 40 and 41 of Suetonius's Tiberius.